Welcome back to our video series on engaging young people in community online. You are being joined by Jonathan Reed. I'm Director of Programs with Next Gen Men.
And I am Stephanie, the Manager of Youth Programs and Partnerships at Next Gen Men.
And I am Ali, Youth Program Coordinator at Next Gen Men.
And our job here is to help you feel equipped and empowered to form and steward safe and impactful online communities with young people, including our cat mascot Pickle. I love that. We're doing our best to bring you some of our expertise from what we've been doing over the last 5.5 years, as well as what we've discovered in our evaluation and our co-collaboration with our Youth Advisory Council and those kinds of things. But this particular video is about what we call our system of connection. If you haven't seen our previous videos, actually, maybe somebody else, maybe Stephanie, do you want to give a quick snapshot of the systems of care? And then I'll jump into the system of connection.
Yes. So our systems of care encapsulates 4 areas: a system of safety, a system of engagement, a system of connection, which we're about to really jump into, and our system of empowerment. And these 4 areas of safety and engagement and community, not community connection, but community is a part of it, and empowerment is really what makes up the server and what we do each and every single day.
So the systems of care is sort of the model that we follow in stewarding this community, and we're going to dive into this idea of connection. We connected, first of all, I know I'm just, okay, I used the word connection twice, but we connected the systems to the core needs represented within a framework called Circle of Courage. Circle of Courage, again, you've heard me say this before if you've watched multiple videos, but the Circle of Courage framework comes from a researcher named Martin Brokenleg. And one of the core needs that he identifies is the core need of belonging. The young people, in order to flourish, need to feel a sense of being known by the people around them, really being cherished and recognized for who they are, and really being able to say, I belong to a group of people. That's a core need for young people as they grow up. That's what this system is about. And it's also motivated by our commitment as an organization to supporting the well-being of masculine identifying youth. One thing that I've started saying recently is that boys, and maybe this is a dramatic way to put it, but I think all young people are facing a mental health crisis. And boys in particular are facing that crisis with the fewest resources and the most stigma attached with reaching out for help. And so we've been thinking about what can we do and what do we already do as an organization to support them and to promote their well-being. And that brings us to this idea of belonging. Actually, let me go down a quick digression and just do like a little sort of snapshot of what we know about boys' friendships. So first of all, in like the mid 20th century, like early research on psychology, on health and well-being, like that all centered on boys. Boys were the default masculine. Obviously, people were the default subject of health research. That being said, in the mid to late 20th century, feminist researchers started picking up this torch and saying, we want to apply qualitative methods and participant-centered research, voice-centered research, and see what we can uncover if we put girls and women at the forefront of what we're focused on. And they uncovered this like deep emotional, relational set of qualities in girls and women. And at the same time, researchers were still applying the same quantitative, survey-based, relatively shallow research methodologies with boys that had already been sort of determined for decades and decades already. And what they found was that boys' relationships were competitive and hierarchical and relatively shallow. And it wasn't actually until like the early 21st, like early 2000s, that some seminal researchers in our field, so Niobe Way, for example, Judy Chu, for example, decided, hey, let's take these feminist research methodologies, voice-centered research, participant-centered research. Let's bring that lens to young adolescent boys. And what they found was that boys' lives were deeply relational and emotional, because those are human qualities. That need for belonging is a human need. And in particular, boys spoke quite sort of eloquently and emotionally about how much their closest friendships meant to them in sort of at the age of being a preteen or a young teenager. And what Niobe Way, well, has talked about in all kinds of different places, what she found was that in mid-adolescence, that started to shift. And she continues to point out that that crisis of connection that boys face in mid-adolescence is not disconnected from their mental health struggles, from the increasing disparity of suicide rates and substance use rates and things like that. The point being that there's, at this point, actually an incredible amount of both quantitative and qualitative research that points to the unique impact of boys' closest friendships as a protective factor for their mental health and well-being. And what that means for us is that our Discord server is about building supportive peer community, knowing that that is a protective factor for them, so that when boys are facing the rough waters of adolescence, they have this like eddy. I don't know if that's the right word. You're a canoeer, Stephanie, that like this like calm water, this like calm space where they can come and just be themselves, right? And know that the people around them are trustworthy and are going to have their back and show up for them when they need it. Actually, maybe Stephanie, do you have anything that you want to snapshot from? Well, I'll pass it to you, but I didn't even think if you have anything that you want to snapshot from the evaluation report that you did over the last year, or you could just dive into the system of connection.
I think the one thing that comes up for me when I think about our evaluation is that the moments of, early adolescence where boys are talking very openly about how deep and meaningful their friendships are. We're capturing boys at that point in time, but we're also walking with them through that journey where things are becoming a little bit different for them and things are shifting and changing, and the friendships that they so deeply held in early adolescence might be shifting or changing. Their friend might get a girlfriend or go to a different school or whatever it might be. And so, kind of echoing Niobe Way's work, we see and are following those boys throughout that process, and we see it kind of unfold and happen. And the Discord server is kind of where a lot of them feel that they can talk about what's going on for them, especially in our support channel, and share with us about that journey of maybe feeling like those connections are not the same anymore, or they're struggling to figure out how do they connect with their friends, or how do they make new friends, or what does that look like for them? Or maybe they're starting to think about dating and relationships. How do I ask a girl out? Like, these are all questions that we get often. And so we're walking alongside them during that transition, I would say. Yeah. All right. I will take it away. I mean, really, we're talking about our system of connection, and broadly that encapsulates 3 different areas. So first, our facilitator moderation. So what does it look like in our space for us to help sort of guide that transition, or the things that are happening in young people's lives? How are we showing up for them when maybe they mess up or they make a mistake? How are we meeting them there? And that's really in our relational approach to moderating in this online environment. The next is our identity-based channels, which are specific spaces within the server that are meeting young people in whatever identity that they are at in their life, whether that means that they're in middle school or high school, or they're part of the 2S LGBTQ+ community, or our support channel and they're wanting to deeply share and be vulnerable with each other, or our Houses initiative, which is our house of curiosity, courage, empathy, and equity, which is in line with Next Gen Men values. And lastly, we have our programs within NGM Alliance, which is our Minecraft, our Dungeons and Dragons, our esports, and our Twitch. It also includes our Rites of Passage Expeditions program, which is an in-person program where we go into the backcountry on hiking and canoeing trips. But I'll tell you a little bit about that in a second. But we're going to jump into facilitator moderation first. And this is really crucial to making sure that our engagement is moving past just engaging and moving forward to connection between us as facilitators and the young people within our space, but also connection within themselves, their friendships with each other. And so it's also the place where we figure out, how do we tackle what's going on when kids are making mistakes or saying things that, is breaking our code of conduct. So our conflict resolution framework, which is a part of our system of safety and within our policies, it really helps guide us in this facilitator moderation when conflict occurs in the server, or somebody breaks our code of conduct outright. It's a flow chart, so it helps guide us as, the moderators of the space of when we should intervene and how, and making sure that, in the moment, for example, that we can de-escalate a situation that's occurring using our bot commands. So asking the, kids to delete something themselves, for example, or using Discord features such as muting, which is temporarily disabling their ability to type within our space for 10, 30 minutes, helping them cool off in the moment, or deleting messages. Using these Discord features is incredibly important and helpful for us. It also helps us guide what are the next steps. Like, sure, a conflict can happen, but then what? How do we handle that? So it helps us figure out by firstly making sure that we're flagging what happened, and secondly, by figuring out who has the most rapport or connection built already and trust built with these people that were involved in the conflict, or the one person who broke the code of conduct, and how can we make sure that that facilitator is following up with them directly. As a voluntary space, they can leave at any point in time. They can just not respond. They could ghost us. They could, whatever it might be. So making sure that we have that person who has that the trust built up is really important for us, and making sure that we're meeting them where they are, and making sure that we have, the tools to be as most successful in the interaction as possible. Within this sort of follow-up space, we really have built in a time frame of like over 12 hours. We want the situation to have cooled off so we can have some reasonable conversations, and making sure that, the people involved are in a state of self-regulation and not dysregulated, because nothing helpful is going to happen in that moment. So, we also are trying to figure out, what are they willing to engage it with? Like, how can we engage with them? So there's sort of three options for us in this space. If there's a history of conflict in the relationship between people that have been involved in something, it is us sort of engaging and seeing if they're willing to engage in conflict transformation. So that would be, can we all jump in a call together and sort of talk about what's going on? Really, that's like, the best, making sure that they can have both of their perspectives heard from one another while we mediate in between, and make sure that we can come to a sort of a conclusion of like, how can we exist in the same space and follow the code of conduct, and like, we don't have to be best friends, but how can we like continue to agree to show up in the space in the way that we want to? The second option is, how can we work towards a solution, right? So this is really where shuttle diplomacy comes into play, which is us as a facilitator mediating and moderating between the two people and saying, can I share what you shared with this person? And making sure that you're sort of in the in-between through our direct messages, and making sure that there's, this way that we can come to a solution together without them having to get into a call. The third option is, self-regulation, getting help and building skills and strategies around regulation itself. So whether that's like self-awareness or mindfulness or the ability to communicate, can we engage with this person individually to help them sort of build some skills that might be helpful and prevent the extremity of the conflict, or prevent conflict in the future for them in their life as a young person. So that's sort of the conflict resolution framework in a nutshell. But another way that that helps guide us within this piece is our auto mod. So like events and membership application, auto mod was a feature that Discord actually developed in midway through the existence of NGM Alliance. And it's exactly sort of what it sounds like. It's an automated moderation tool where there are certain words or phrases that it catches, and it sends us a notification to let us know when those words or flagged, phrases have been said within the space. It's something that we continually check every single day to make sure that we're maintaining the safety of the space. We initially used it to automatically delete inappropriate language. So there were certain words that just could not be said, and the AutoMod would block their ability to send that word. However, because young people are clever and smarter than I will ever be, there's always ways around things. So they figured out that they could screenshot the message that they wanted to send. And because it was an image, it would still go through. And so they were really frustrated with the amount of blocked words there was in the server. And so we decided to sort of shift away from this and move towards flagging the language. So we still knew that it was happening, but not outright banning it. We still ban certain words. For example, slurs are banned within the space. However, swearing and other, beautiful language that you can think of that would be a part of this is flagged now. So we know when it's happening, but they are able to type it out because they were just screenshotting it and putting it anyways. And what's the point of having a moderation tool that they're getting around? And that's causing frustration. There's no reason to have that. So, surprisingly, we found that boys actually don't, like the young people in our space don't break the rules as often as you might think. Yes, they sometimes make a joke out of something that they shouldn't, or that they're joking about something that, somebody's saying, I don't like that very much. And, that connects to a piece in your code of conduct where, people can set boundaries and say, I'm not cool with that. And they have to follow that. But by large, they want to be a part of a positive and supportive peer community. So they consistently show up with good intentions, we've found. And that brings us to asset-based community development. And I will pass it to you, Ali, as the inventor of this beautiful, beautiful piece of our server.
It's so funny. I'm like looking at Jonathan's like comment, and he's like, ABCD. I didn't realize that was asset-based community development. He didn't realize that was the acronym too, which I thought was super entertaining. But I mean, inventor is a strong word. I definitely didn't invent anything. I think what it was is that you're right, Stephanie. Like the youth, they're gonna do what they want to do, and they're gonna find a way to do it. So rather than us continuously finding ways to be punitive, continuously putting up more safeguards, continuously us like monitoring, policing language, the reality is that if you want to build anyone up, it doesn't work by putting them down. It means by bolstering whatever they're doing that's already so great. So asset-based community development was probably just like a fancy term created under the strength-based approach. But what the idea is that resources, abilities, and wantingness is already within a community, right? The objective of a facilitator and the objective of being a part of a community is finding those moments, finding those positive reinforcement messages or words being used by the members and bolstering to show that this is what the community is about, this is how we want to practice, and this is what we're giving recognition to. And the way we do this is through AutoMod. So like Stephanie mentioned, previously and still currently, AutoMod has limitations on what language you can use. Before, it had a lot of limitations on what you can say and you can and cannot say. And we used to like block it off. It's like, no, you can't say this word, not allowed on the server, break server guidelines, don't do that. Which is not helpful. No one learns that way. It's not productive, and if anything, it just doesn't encourage you to be a part of a community. So instead, we have a category in AutoMod called asset-based community development, and this is a moment whenever a member says anything positive to themselves or to someone else, it gives the facilitator a notification, and that's an opportunity for us to jump in and support those language that they're using. So an example, a very simple one, it would be, let's use the example of us three. Jonathan says, Al, you're the GOAT. You're the best person on the planet, which is objective truth. So Stephanie can go and it's like, yeah, that sounds about right. Thank you for sharing such a positive message, right? So that's, a hyperbolized example, but there are a lot of moments in the server where youth will show up and say something and show up for one another. And it's not just us that are coming in and reinforcing that language. It's each other that are also sharing these positive messages. And the idea is that once you start a movement, it turns into a trend and then turns into a normalized behavior within a community. So that was our objective. And we had a few channels kind of follow that trajectory. So we have a props channel. So there's an opportunity for us facilitators every week to shout out a member. We have intros channel. So whenever a member joins our community, we talk about, some great things that they're up to, some of their passions, some of their interests. So it's an opportunity for other members to kind of, shout them out as well, or connect in some sort of level in that way. Reactions emojis. So if someone says something sweet, something sentimental, we can throw in a heart or a hug emoji. And one channel that means a lot to all three of us is kissing the homies goodnight, where definitely, I don't remember if maybe you can share the quote, but like this is an opportunity for members to, come in and literally say, have a great night, have a blessed night, have a great day tomorrow, and things of those sorts. So, these small moments are what creates a community, is through those connections, through the shared moments, and all in all, having that asset-based community development to it.
One thing we've also experienced is, I guess, the challenge of creating a sense of belonging in a server that's bigger than a single friend group. It's easy to feel a sense of belonging when it's a group of like 8 people. You're like, yeah, I know every single one of these people. I know what we have in common. I know that they know me. And well, the server. So what I want to talk about is what we call identity-based channels. And the kind of the backstory to that is that the server started basically as, what became a small single friend group in the midst of the pandemic. It was a group of boys, mostly in grade 8 and grade 9. And they came together. It was a really challenging time that we were all facing. And they came together and we built connection through the systems of engagement that we've already talked about. And that being said, as the years progressed, they got older. And we also had some younger youth who were interested in joining and join the community. And all of a sudden, that sense of belonging started to shift. And, for example, we'd have like high schoolers who were kind of annoyed by the middle schoolers, and we'd have middle schoolers who were sort of intimidated by the high schoolers. And so we started to notice this sort of, disconnection that was happening. And it wasn't anybody's particular fault, right? That's just, young people being at different developmental stages. It's kind of funny. At one point, I think I was saying to Stephanie or one of you two that I was like, it's bizarre to me because they're all kids. Like they're all young. They're all, like this 15-year-old like, yeah, I can't handle this immature 12-year-old. I'm like, you're immature too, bro. But for them, right, they're at different developmental stages. And it meant a lot to them to be able to ultimately have a space where it was just for them and their particular friend group. And so we created a middle school channel, right, and a high school channel. And we ultimately at this point have a post-secondary alumni space as well. And that's about saying the space is for you. And it gives them that smaller sort of group to connect with. Similarly, something that we've been working on is an initiative that's called our Houses program. So this actually goes back a few years, but we haven't ever really done that much with it. The idea is when a young person joins the server, they can either choose or be assigned to a house. Think of, it's kind of cringy, but like think of Harry Potter. Think of, some, various schools have this sort of like houses, competitive houses, like sort of system. And the reason we decided we wanted to build this out and launch it more fully is because, again, with it's not like our server's that big, but with a relatively large server, we, like Ali said, we introduce each young person in that introductions thread. But the introductions thread is sort of like introducing them to the rest of the server. And we also decided we need a way to introduce the rest of the server to them. But being introduced to like 50 people all at once, like you're like, where do I even start? Right. And so the houses are meant to be this like smaller space where they do pretty quickly get to feel this sense of belonging because it is a smaller group and they know they have something in common, right? They chose the same house. And so with the middle school, high school, what we call Unk Chatter, that alumni space with the houses, like what we're planning on doing is like activating these channels, having discussions, but also having events that are just for those particular groups. We also, over the years, had youth ask for a 2S LGBTQ space. Again, that's about having that affinity group that is going through similar things or facing similar challenges. And we also had young people ask for a mental health support space. Again, maybe not what you would necessarily think for like teenage boys, but what they said was ultimately we're going through stuff. And when we communicate about that kind of more personal, more vulnerable, stuff, like we want to know it's not going to be taken as a joke. Like we want to know that it's going to be taken seriously and treated with like, with the sort of the respect that that level of vulnerability deserves. And so we collaborated with young people to create guidelines for both the, these sort of like, I guess these like sort of specialized spaces. The 2S LGBTQ channel has a specific set of guidelines. The mental health channel as well has a specific set of guidelines, and what they do is they signal that young people then know like what I communicate in this space is going to be treated, because they know everybody else who's accessed these locked channels or specialized spaces or communities has looked at the same guidelines and understood them, and said that they're going to respect those guidelines as well. And so what they do is they kind of foster, right, an opportunity for belonging. And we know that it like there's something to it, because for example in these spaces there's a bot that's called Confessions. Confessions bot is completely untraceable. Again, it was another feature that was asked for by young people themselves. And what it means is that you can type to the bot and the bot will post your message anonymously, and it's actually anonymous. Like the young people, like there's a setting that's traceable and a setting that's untraceable, and the young people specifically requested the untraceable setting, and we decided to try it. Essentially, even if we wanted to, even if like the bot owner and developer wanted to, there actually is no way to trace who said what through the bot. And that means it could be abused, right? Young people could use it to say things that are inappropriate or break the code of conduct and not be found out. And they don't. They use that feature just to communicate about the things that they are authentically struggling with that they might not want to say out loud themselves. And for me, I guess what I'm saying is the utility of the confession bot with that level of integrity demonstrates that they're feeling that sense of belonging and really getting something out of it.
Which brings us to programs. Just like identity-based channels, right? As friendships are being built, a need for deeper connection begins to develop as well. So to support members in exploring and expressing what these deeper connections look like, we decided, or with the union of the youth, we decided to create gaming-centered programs. And they kind of, at least what we have right now, we have 3 ways that Stephanie kind of mentioned a little earlier. We have Minecraft, Dungeons and Dragons, Next Gen Esports, and we also have a Twitch channel. Shout out, twitch.tv/nextgenmen. Just saying. So, Minecraft honestly is our most highly engaged and requested program of them all, and it's pretty foundational in the development of the community's camaraderie. So Minecraft allows members to take leadership in developing mod packs, server rules, guidelines, events, and campaigns. And also, what's really cool about it is that not just like our active social members get a platform, it also gives a platform from our quieter, less expressive members through art, through creativity. Now with Minecraft, something that it also brings that a lot of other programs don't have the ability to bring, it brings a little bit of attention, tension. Minecraft gives the community an opportunity to express disagreement and conflicts, exercising like the ability to reconcile, understanding what does it mean to be in a conflict, what does it mean to be in a disagreement, what does it mean to be in an argument. Right? There's no program, there's no ability in a person to have like sunshines and rainbows all the time. So Minecraft gives that opportunity to showcase what it means to be in a disagreement and how to take the autonomy and the sovereignty to, reconcile those disagreements. Now, following Minecraft, we have Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons, honestly, is a very, very cool game. I've played a couple of campaigns that the youth ran. It's a collaborative opportunity for you to express your most creative and humorous self. Our campaigns are literally hosted by the members in the community. It's allowing them to create an opportunity to create these deep personal connections while building your character, while slaying dragons, while like I think in one of our campaigns we're like getting out of hell, and like I don't know why I was like super into it. I mean, I know why. It's because it's such an amazing thing, and I was super into it. And I was like sharing things about myself I didn't know, and I was expressing like one of my characters was a bard, and I learned that bard are like musical characters, and that was the first time I ever heard of it, and I got really into it. Our next program that we have is Next Gen Esports. So Next Gen Esports was something I was like very passionate about, but we had like one particular youth who was also really into it as well, who brought it into life, where we were like, competitively playing Valorant. And I don't know how many of you are gamers or are listening to this, but playing Valorant can be quite the intense and stressful game, especially if you're playing in a very competitive level, which is similar to Minecraft, right? You have a very competitive game where your objective is to be successful, your objective is to win, which brings a lot of, tension, animosity with it as well. But with it, when you're creating connections, when you're playing continuously with one another, shows an opportunity for you to show up for one another and learn through empathy. One example I can think of in particularly is within Next Gen Esports, within our Valorant team, right? So Jonathan kind of touched on it a little bit where, older people like 16, 17-year-olds just don't want to be around like a 13, 14-year-olds. Like, no, you can't. Like, I'm too good for you. I'm too smart with you. You're not at our level. So it's kind of like the feeling that we had on the team for a little bit. But with these programs, with these connections that are being created, a little bit of empathy or compassion gets developed through a program like Next Gen Esports. So over time, our 17-year-old is like, hey, maybe we should, bring in our 13-year-old a little bit more. Maybe we should have them being a part of the team. And what that was and what that created was for that 13-year-old, they felt a sense of belonging. They felt a sense of connection. They felt a sense of place within Next Gen Esports. So having these programs being developed out, having these connections created over time, creates a wholesome form of community where every single person feels like they have a place without having exclusion created for it. And finally, which brings us to Twitch. Our objective to Twitch is pretty unconventional, right? When you think of Twitch, you think of this like high production, like, super high energy, funny, humorous Twitch streams. Now, I'm funny, humorous, so definitely our Twitch streams are that. But what it is also is an opportunity for youth to showcase their abilities and their skills through gaming, showcasing that like gaming is not just like, harboring this nest of toxicity and harm. It really what it is it's an opportunity to build community, to build friendship, and to build companionship through, the art of gaming and conversation and authentic moments of those sorts. Uh, that's what it looks like in our online programming space. We also have Rope, which I have not had the chance to be a part of because I'm not the most adventurous and wilderness person, but Stephanie is, so she might be able to explain a little bit about that.
Ali is the most adventurous person ever, so don't you worry. We'll get you out there. Rope, the Rites of Passage Expeditions Project is what it stands for. Is something that Jonathan Reed started a couple years ago. I don't know why I said your full name, but I just felt it come over me, so I had to follow the thread. And I also come from an outdoor ed and guiding background and have been leading trips for, over 10 years and taken over 100 kids on trips over the years. So it's a space for us to bring the kids that are within our server into IRL interactions with each other, but quite possibly in the most offline way possible, which is going into the backcountry where there is no cell service and there is no video gaming or any of that happening. And we get to do that in Ontario, going on canoe trips, but we also have over the last 2 summers run 3 hiking trips out in the Canadian Rockies and get to really share a sense of adventure, but also this sense of growth and reflection and connection and deep friendship making and challenge with each other. And a lot of our young people who have been involved in Rope continue to say that it's like the best part of their year and have made like these deep, meaningful friendships from it. And really like it's really bolstered the connections that they've made within the server as well. One story I will share about our Rope trips is that on the final night of our trips, we do something called an honoring ceremony where we bring all of our young people together and create this, special sort of moment where one person sort of sits on on a throne, typically made out of rocks or some or a tree stump or whatever we have around us. And the rest of the young people get to sort of honor them by telling them a quality or qualities about themselves that they really valued and saw within them on the trip. And every single year, without fail, it makes me cry. And it is one of the best parts of my year that I get to be a part of, getting to witness how young people see each other and this, the watching their faces as they get to see their peers and their new friends tell them all these amazing parts of themselves, and that they're expressive, or that they are a leader, or that they are charismatic, or that they're empathetic, or kind, or adventurous, or whatever it might be. It is just it is such a gift to see. So that's the final sort of program we have, which is, bringing people in person and into IRL, into in the wilderness. But I'll pass it to the rope creator himself, Jonathan Reed, to take us home. Land the plane.
I feel like I told this story in our last video, but in case I didn't, a quick snapshot is just that, I was onboarding a new kid a week or two ago, and he said, so it's like a server where you play games with people. And I said, yes, mostly, but not quite. It's a server where you play games that bring you closer to people that you trust, basically. That it's not as simple as just that system of engagement where we're keeping youth engaged, like we're bringing into these deeper senses and spaces of belonging. And so, and so that's through our moderation practices. It's through again, what we call identity-based channels and other ways that like we foster these kind of like closer spaces of connection. And it's through the programs that we've developed and we continue to run. So just like always, like we want you to think about not necessarily how do you do what we do, but how do you bring what you do into this online context? What affinity groups or what like points of connection might make sense for the young people that you work with? What programs, are you running that you could integrate into this online community opportunity? I think that's it from us. So yeah, as always, don't be a stranger. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out at youth@nextgenmen.ca. We have one more video coming up about our system of empowerment. But that's it for me for now. Peace.